You know the exciting feeling of setting new goals, feeling really motivated to get started. The first week, you're killing it. The second week, you are still going strong. The third week, you might skip a day or two, and before you know it, you are right back where you started. I've done that one too many times, and since you're here, you can probably relate to it. So in today's video, I will let you in on a little secret that once I realized this, I never went back into this loop. Before we dive into this, I highly encourage you to go check this video out, which will help you to break with one of the biggest illusions that's hold you back. And after watching it, you will know how to make sustainable change. Spoiler, it requires lower effort than you might think. Anyways, if you have watched that, let's begin with this one. You may have a set of goals you want to achieve, and you now know that 1% improvements are what's going to move the needle towards your goals. In this video, we will zoom a little closer onto those goals. Many of us have been told to set big goals, but actually focusing too much on these goals can decrease your chance of success because we often overlook the importance of having systems in place. What do I mean by this? That is what we are going to discover in this video. Let's first start with defining what a goal is and what is a system. A goal is a one-time accomplishment. You reach it and then you move on. The system, on the other hand, is what will lead you to the goal. We always been told that the best way to achieve anything, whether that being in business, in relationships, or getting into better shape, we need to set specific goals. You might also know it as SMART goals, meaning that the goal should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. But what if I told you to completely ignore the goals and only focus on the systems? Will you still be able to achieve them? Let's say, for example, you want to lose 20 pounds. That's a goal. Eating healthy and exercise regularly, that's a system. Or if you want to learn a new skill, that's a goal. Practicing the skill set every day, that's a system. Once you have established a system, that is what's going to move the needle closer to success, and the goal actually becomes irrelevant, because fixating on wanting to lose weight or learn a new skill set is not going to make it possible, but the system will take you there. Does that mean we should completely forget about goal setting? No, not really, because it will be like shooting in the dark. Without the direction of the goal, you don't know which type of system you should put in place to be able to accomplish your desired life. Fixating on a goal will become counterproductive, meaning that you're operating out of a constant state of failure. Therefore, it's much better to have a system in place you can focus on. Let me try to give you an analogy from any competitive sport. The goal is to have the highest score, but it will be totally ridiculous to spend all game fixating on the score. In fact, it will be much better to completely ignore the score and only focus on the process taking you there, bettering your focus or your strategy. Only then you will end up with the best score. Let me try to put it in an example. If you wanted to lose the 20 pounds from earlier, so far you have only lost 5 pounds, which means that you're failing at meeting your goal. Even when you reach 15 pounds, you still haven't quite reached that goal. How would this make you feel? Maybe a bit frustrated, or you will even be miserable because you haven't quite reached the level you wanted to. The more long-term your goals are, the greater this feeling becomes. And that is what makes people quit and end up back right where they started, until they discover a new spark of motivation, thinking this time it will be different. Sadly, you will end up back in your old habits until you understand the principle I'm about to explain to you. Firstly, you need to understand why we want to avoid attaching too much to our goals, because having goals doesn't equal achieving them. Here are 3 critical points you need to understand. The first being, everyone can have the same goal, but only a few can win. Everyone wants the job, the prize, or win the challenge, but only a very few succeed. So a goal doesn't differentiate who's gonna succeed or who's gonna fail. Secondly, achieving goals only change your life in the moment. What happens when you have achieved the goal? You will get right back into your old routines. And lastly, goals create a either-or conflict. Either you will succeed or you fail, regardless of you actually making important progress in the right direction. This is trapping you in an unhappy state where you either don't feel you're good enough or unfulfilled chasing the next goal. Luckily, systems exist, and it's no wonder that those who focus on systems perform much better and feel much happier. Bringing me to the point I wanted to make earlier, the reason why you're not changing isn't because of you, it's because you don't have the right system in place to take you where you want to be. You're probably wondering now how to set good systems in place. So here is 3 essential steps you need to take. Firstly, like we touched on earlier, you need to set a direction. Secondly, we need to figure out how to get there by asking these questions. What have worked for me in the past? And what have worked for others? These answers will give you a general system you can follow. leading me to the last point. Experiment with it and readjust along the way. And in a bit I will explain the 10, 30 and 100 rule, but firstly you have to understand that we have completely different circumstances, which means we will have different systems in place. One person, for example, will work out as the first thing in the morning, whereas another person will find that extremely difficult, and it will be much easier for that person to work out after work, for example. So it won't be a one system fits all, unfortunately, because that could sure be nice, but that's also the beauty of it. We are all our own unique self and need to discover what works best for us. It will also be pretty boring if there was only one option. There's something about experimenting with it and discovering your own unique systems. System setting might be new to you, or maybe you haven't quite mastered it yet, but that's why we're here. You're probably thinking that it sounds all good in theory, but how do you actually do it in practice? So let's break it down together. Firstly, you have to set a direction. This means you have to sit down and reflect on what you want to achieve in your life. And this can be a pretty difficult task to do. Even though it might seem intimidating, you're the only one who knows what you truly desire. So you can't let others determine what path you need to take, because they won't know what resonates the most with you. A fulfilling and meaningful life comes by taking this first step. So don't you dare let your mom pick which path you need to take. Even though she's doing it out of good intentions, she doesn't exactly know how you think and what will resonate the most with you. So that's something you have to figure out on your own. I assure you, you won't have an answer at first, and that's totally okay. Or maybe you already know what type of direction you want your life in that you can test out. This might sound a bit cheesy, but life is a constant learning experience, and hopefully throughout your life you will get to know yourself better and better. To start with, you can ask yourself these important questions. What kind of impact do I want to have in this world? What makes me happy and fulfilled? That's a super important one to ask. Relationships, that's also a huge factor in your well-being, because the human is a social creature, so you have to ask yourself, what are the type of people I want to be surrounded by? To start with, I highly encourage you to go subscribe to this channel, because then you already have created an opportunity to meet like-minded people, leading me to the next question. What kind of relationships do I want to have? And lastly, what are my fears and obstacles? Now, let's say you have a fear of speaking in public, or you want to inspire others by pursuing your creative dream, then what are the actions you need to take to be able to achieve this? Bringing me to the second step, how to get there. Here we need to ask ourselves what have worked in the past, and also seek others and ask them how they succeeded. To overcome public speaking, it might have worked for you to practice in front of your family or friends, somewhere where it's a safe place. Therefore, you could say to yourself that you want to hold a little speech for 5 minutes every day in front of these people. It could also be less, it really depends on where you're starting, but please remind yourself of the 1% improvement that I talked about in the previous video. The first one might be really shitty, but if you focus on the 1% improvement, then before you know it, you will have overcome this fear. Now, let's look on the other person that wants to inspire others by pursuing their creative dream. They might have had some success by posting on social media. Now, you have to look outward. What have other people done? Here you have to find people that have done what you're dreaming of, really study them, find out how they succeeded, and if you dare, I highly encourage you to write them a message asking them for advice. I know that most people will be more than happy to share their advice to others, and by now you should have a general idea of a system you can put in place that we can try out by implementing the 10, 30, 100 rule I mentioned earlier. So let's break it down. The first 10 days you're missing is to figure out if this system is something that's sustainable for you. So you need to stick to it with 100%, meaning that you will not skip a day, and if you do, you have to start over. And the point shouldn't be to get any results. The point is really to know if this system is something that's sustainable for your everyday life. And if you can do it for 10 days, chances are that you might be able to stick to it for longer. If you can't stick to it for the 10 days, then you need to readjust the systems and try again. Once these 10 days is sustainable for you, we now are focusing on progressing towards your goals, which we will do in the next 30 days. Here it's okay to stick to it 90%, meaning that you might skip a day a week or every other day, preferably none at all. You will be committing the next 30 days to see if you will make any progress on your goal. The focus isn't going to be if you achieve your goal or not. The important part is that you will start to make progress. Let's quickly look at our examples, and if you guys want me to incorporate your stories or goals, then write them below and I will be more than happy to incorporate them in my next videos. But if you, for the next 30 days, keep holding that speech for 5 minutes, then after 30 days you might be able to speak fluently for 2 minutes without breaking your flow, or maybe you will be able to look up from the paper more than you used to. And if we say that you post something on your social media every day, you will possibly get X amount of followers or likes, or maybe you will be able to hold more people's attention for longer on your videos. Whatever way of measuring your progress works for you, it really doesn't matter. You just want to be able to compare your progress. The thing about human psychology is that when we see progress, we are more driven to proceed, and that is when you will commit for the 100 days. You will be changing your life and won't be looking back at your whole life, excelling through milestone after milestone. But please keep in mind that you don't need to stick to it 100%. But I will say under 80%, that's an issue. That means you're starting to make excuses and that this system might not be sustainable for you. If you had to post every day on your social media, you might be able to do it in 5 minutes. It probably won't be the best performing piece, but it will get the job done. The point is that you stuck to your commitment, and who wouldn't be able to find those 5 minutes throughout the 24 hours we have a day, or 1440 minutes? That should be manageable. If you're struggling to find time anywhere, take a look on your screen time and see if you won't be able to cut 5 minutes out of that. If you do this, you will begin to see mixed results. And if you find it challenging to stick to any amount of the days, then go back and readjust your systems. I hope by now you have understood that goals are good to set a direction and systems are the best for making progress, and that you have understood how to set good systems in place. I know you have, though there's one thing missing, and if you don't start to do this one thing, you won't excel on your goals. So I highly encourage you to click onto this video where I will explain the one thing you are missing. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in there.